Now that we are getting out of this coronavirus and things are trying to get to rolling again, what are you doing different? Do you have a plan for what you're going to do now in the current state of things?
Most of us had the pause button hit for the last 3 months, pretty much everybody around the world. And I've been talking to some people, and my wife put it into a really good analogy. She said that we're all weathering the same storm, but we're in different sized boats. And some of us have been working harder than ever. Some of us have been trying to figure out how to pay our bills while we're not working. And sadly, some of us have just passed on, which is really, really unfortunate. And Reese and I were kind of thinking, how are we going to make lemonade out of these lemons that just kind of keep falling from the sky every day that for the last 3 months that we've all been dealing with? And this is kind of why we're here today. Reese and I have had similar situations, but they've also been a little bit different. And I want to ask you, have you ever stopped and asked yourself, what do you really want out of life? What does a prosperous life mean to you? What does prosperity mean to you?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because each person's going to think about it differently. They're going to think of somebody who's prosperous in their life, and they're going to think like, yeah, I really wish I could be like that. And it's not always somebody who has the most money. It could be somebody who's making a lot of money in their job. They're looking at somebody who's not making as much money, but they have all the free time in the world to spend with their family, or they can travel whenever they want, or stuff like that. And to them, that would be a much more prosperous life than where they're at. That's why it gets a little interesting when we start to think about what that prosperity means for each of us, and not what we've been told all along, not what we've been spoon-fed ever since forever. And that's where that making that lemonade out of these lemons each comes with a little bit of a different flavor, and we need a plan to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Reese, even though you and I both have our preferred lives pretty much set up, I tell you what, I read mine every single day, and I tweak it, I would say, every few months. I'll go back and kind of switch things up and like, man, I went down this road and it just wasn't really what I was looking for. Now I'm going to kind of go back to the start point of where I was, and I'm going to go in a different direction. I know you can relate to that directly in the past probably 24 months of your life, more than what I have. But I would say in the past 7, 8 years, man, I've been going in one direction. This isn't it, but I learned something. So I'm going to go back to start. I'm going to go in this direction. This isn't it, but I also learned some more stuff over here. So maybe it's kind of in the middle here. And I probably tried 7, 8, 10 different things, 12 different things. And I would say that I can honestly say that I'm on the best path that I've ever been on, but I'm not on the best path that I ever will be on. Because I know the best path is always the next one coming up as I make a new adjustment. So, Reese, I know your story is more close to what's going on right now and reticent. So why don't you kind of shoot off and tell us what your prosperous life is and how you're making course corrections.
Yeah, I mean, the 9 to 5ers, we're really focused on trying to get to that stage where we're getting out of our job. Like that's really the crux of it. Now, there's some people that, they really do like what they do, but they're missing a little bit of freedom. They wouldn't mind staying in their job, but they just don't have any other backup plan, and that's fine too. And that's all in the same shoe, so to speak. We're still wearing the same shoes, so that's what we're trying to focus on, is how do we get to that financial freedom? Like, isn't that what we're really after? And we kind of want to jump to that point of it, just make more money. And we kind of forget that that's a little further down the road. There's some steps we need to put in place before that. And that's what the preferred life really does for us. And what Joe was speaking about with my preferred life, it's kind of been unfolding before I go. I had cancer, and I had to work through that. And then I had this other path that I thought I was going to be able to do. And that didn't work out. Thank goodness, because this coronavirus, that would have been a mess. So like there's things that happen along the way that we do have to adjust our preferred life and in the direction we're headed and what it looks like for us. But that's the beauty of it, is that once we get really clear on that preferred life, we're able to have that tell us yes or no. Like, are we going to go down that road or not? Because for me, when I started going down my last venture, before that fell through, there was some grounds, like some lines I wasn't going to cross, and I had that laid out in there, and it got to that point, and I said no, and things worked out all the better, because I would have been bankrupt at this point. And that's why it's very important to have this lined out. And I'm not fully there yet, but my wife's out of her job. She's been out of her job for coming on 4 years now. Like, she's able to stay at home with her kids, and maybe that's a level of prosperity too. Like I said, her kids, our kids. but that's probably prosperous to a working family. Like, isn't there a bunch of moms out there who would love to stay home with their kids, or dads for that matter? Well, I'd love to be able to stay home with them too, but we're working on it. So there's different steps to that, and that's where the preferred life really helps us out.
A little bit of foreshadowing into that. I was trying to figure out where my wife and I, because Reese, my wife and I were kind of in the similar boat that you and your wife are at, with the career and the finances, so to speak, basically the same basic bubble. And I thought to myself, I was like, are we at stage, and I'm kind of foreshadowing a little bit here, but are we at stage 3 or are we at stage 4? Like, where are we? Like, I can't really put a defining point on it. And I said, I'm thinking to myself, we were both at stage 3, and then I quit my job. So I got rocketed to stage 4, and now I'm pulling my wife from stage 3 to stage 4, and she's doing the diesel engine work of getting everything done, making sure the ship doesn't move too much. I'm up there up front, rocking the boat a little bit, making big investment decisions and kind of getting a little bit wild. But that's what you have to do to get out of your comfort zone. I've probably done, with this last investment that I've done, I've probably done 15 things I've never done before. And that's where the magic happens. Like, going crazy aggressive, you're going to get crazy aggressive, either positives or negatives. I'm not that super aggressive or risk taking. I like to take little tiny risks one after another and get out of my comfort zone that way, so that if I do step on a landmine, I don't completely explode. There's just something that kind of, I can take a step back and readjust. But man, it is really awesome to not have to go to a full-time job anymore. And I thought, when we did our mastermind, this was about a year ago, I spent my entire hour focusing on, I was like, I don't want to be one of those guys that says I'm going to work, and then I just go upstairs and just play video games all day. Like, I'm so deathly afraid of that. And my mastermind group, and Reese, you were there helping me with this, is that you guys helped me set up a schedule with sticks and carrots in place to track what I'm doing every single hour of every single working day, not only to be focused and on task, but also not turn it into a 12-hour day of just filling up the space with busy work. And there was a little thing that used to go off on my phone that would ask myself the question, am I being productive? And sometimes we're just being busy, and sometimes we're actually being productive. And when you work for yourself, you have to be productive, because you'll never grow if you just stay busy. And I'm saying this not to, the audiences. So I'm just saying this like to myself, always as a reminder, like, always stay productive and try to give the busy work to other people. So, and all boils back to, what do I really want out of life? That compass, that prosperous life. And I have mine mapped out 100%, and I read it every single day. Reese?
Yeah, I have mine taped to bathroom mirror. I have one on the door going out in their garage. I have another version that I carry around in my wallet with me. Like it's that important that we read it as much as possible. But Joe, let's touch on what the 5 stages are real quick, so that quit making them guess as to what it is exactly we're talking about.
Yeah.
So stage one is create your preferred life, and that's what we're talking about here. That's the starting point. That's where we jump off from, because that defines the rest of what you do from there. It's very important. We'll talk a little bit more about that now. But stage two is reduce your expenses, and we'll go over why that's important once we start talking about that. We won't talk about that in this video. Stage three, build extra income. Now you'll notice we didn't jump to stage three of increasing your income on stage one or stage two. That was stage three. There was some stepping stones we had to do before then. That's very important. Stage four is build wealth. And then stage five is give back. So we'll be walking through these here as we go through these next videos. But this preferred life is where we start from, like I said. And it really is the roadmap for where we go. It's like the GPS. It tells us where we are, where we're going, how we're going to get there. And once we go through the next 5 stages, and once we have that figured out, it just becomes so much simpler. And just life in general is simpler, and things happen for us. We're no longer a victim. We're not at the mercy of a stimulus check. Like, I loved receiving that money, but it wasn't that I needed it. I've put myself into a situation where I'm living the life that I want to. There's things I want to build, but I can be happy where I'm at.
Reese, when you were going through the 5 stages there, I was kind of looking at them, and I realized that stage one is the hardest stage, and it's the stage that happens in between your ears where all the walls get broke down. And stage 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all, for the most part, for simplistic terms, they're external. They're actions, they're waypoints, they're action points, and they're moving the ball forward. But man, stage 2, 3, 4, and 5 don't matter if you don't get stage one down 100%. And I shouldn't say 100%. I would say that you're very confident in, and you're very emotionally invested in stage one before you start to move on to stage 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I was actually just talking with one of our coaches today. And I said, hey, there's this one aspect of my vision that I don't really have worked out yet. I've been struggling to put it together. So one, like, don't think that you will fail if you don't have it figured out. You can still fail forward. But I said I don't have it figured out yet. And part of it is because I'm not 100% clear on where I want to go. But two is that I'm worried that if I do put that down, it's going to come true. Like, I have no doubt about that. But I'm worried that if what comes true is the wrong thing, then I just had the wrong thing come up. And his response to me was, think about the Y in the road. So he does this analogy, I'll share it. So if you come to a Y in a road, you have 4 decisions. First, you can go left, you can go right, you can stay where you're at, or you can turn around. Well, we're trying to move forward, so we're not turning around. We can wipe that one out. That leaves us 3 decisions: left, right, or stay where we're at. Only one of the directions is the correct one. So which one do you choose? Well, if the left direction is the correct way to go and you choose left, great. You chose the right way from the get-go. No worries. Now, if you stay where you're at, you're not going to really get anywhere. So if you go right, you're going to go the wrong way. But what happens when you go the wrong way? You'll go a little ways down that path and you'll realize, hey, this wasn't the way that I wanted to go. So what do? Turn around, come back, and who do you meet? the person who didn't make a choice yet, and you just pass them up and go along the way that you now know is the correct way. Point being, you choose a way and you go for it and you try it and you do something, you're gonna find out whether it was right or not. And that's what you got to do with your preferred life is you gotta get it as clear as you can, as much as possible for what you want to do with your life, and then you go for it. If it turns out to be wrong, then so be it. Like, for instance, say you wanted to pay off a bunch of debt. You wasn't sure if that was the right thing to do to pay off this interest that you're paying, or to invest the money instead and try to get a better return. You know, financially it'll work out if you can get a better return, but you know, stress wise, you don't know. So, all right, well, we're going to try paying it off. Well, we get a little ways down this road and we don't like it. Well, all right, fine. We can turn around. We can go back into more debt and go the investment route, or vice versa. We can go the investment route and we're thinking, I still got a little bit too much stress. Could turn around. Okay, fine. We're going to pay off the debt instead. Either way, you can still try to figure out like, hey, there's a way forward, and I know which way is the way that I want to choose. Whether you choose the wrong way or the right way, you're going to know.
Reese, I got a real life example of this when it comes to career. So I was working in a factory, and solid low wage work, but it was consistent. And I went to go and get my insurance license. I took the weekend classes and studied, and then I passed my state exam, and now I'm an official insurance agent, licensed with the state of Ohio. And I'm like, this is me going down one of those Y roads. I'm like, this has got to be better than what I was doing at the factory, so I'm going to go down this road. And I get into it, and of course it's tough. It's a pain in the butt, and it's all new. But I'm remembering that this is tough, but it's tough because it's new. And I went, and I literally was out on my birthday working, and I closed this person on a policy. I made like $550 in 45 minutes. So, I'm close to $600 an hour, so to speak. Not too many people make that kind of money. Plus you get the chunk up front, you get the chunk on the back end, and you get the chunk, every year that they keep the policy type of thing. So your income can grow exponentially in all different types of ways as an insurance agent. And I'm driving home, I'm just like, man, I just made $560 or whatever it was. And after that, it wasn't even 5 seconds, I was just like, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. And I was like, and it was so sad because it was like I made a bunch of money, I made a chunk of money for 45 minutes worth of work, but then I was just also like, I'm going to have to go back to that stupid factory again. So I went down that one part of the Y, and I was like, this is actually worse than the factory just because of the way my personality is. It's just not for me. The factory is actually better than this. So I went back to the spot where the guy that hasn't made a decision yet. And like you were telling me this story, Reese, and I was just like, there are 400 people that are still standing at that point and at that factory and haven't done anything yet. And I'm just like, and then I went into, man, I can't even remember what it was, becoming a firefighter, or I finally got it. Basically, I did 3 or 4 different things. I went down the Y multiple times, and then I finally found the one that was working, and it was actually something I was already in, which was real estate. And I just dumped all my chips into that pot, and I just went full bore. And I think it took me another year and a half before I was able to financially and have everything set up properly to make that jump. But man, I'm telling you, that walk back to the beginning of the Y does suck, and it can be very humbling. It can be very frustrating, but that's where all the knowledge comes from, and you learn. And I asked myself, like when I was about ready to make the leap every single time, I asked myself, would I rather try and fail, or would that be worse than never trying and wondering what if? And every single time it was, I'd rather try and fail, because this stupid factory is always going to be here. I can always come back in as a new guy. Yeah, my seniority will reset and blah, 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 blah. And but the fact is like, I don't want to be one of those guys that's been here 20, 30 years and just wondering what if I would have done that? What if I like, and I'm still young enough to make that move. And you can be any age, in my opinion, to start over. But man, when I finally figured it out and finally got out, I didn't feel bad for any of those people that just stood there and laughed when I would come back, like, "Oh, why are you back, man? Why are you back?" Like, you just make it. But those people are still there, and I mean, I don't have anything against them, but I definitely feel bad for them because, man, they're just still stuck at the beginning of that why, not making a decision. And this is kind of why Reese and I kind of got on this call, was because this COVID thing is, hopefully you're not going to get another one of these opportunities to sit at home and think about your entire life for months and months on end. And I hope that people have been doing that. I know people have been sitting and reflecting, being like, man, is this what I really want to do? Is this what, because I've watched many podcasts where people were like, man, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I want to do? But when you're in the grind and you're just going Monday through Friday, every single weekend, week out, waiting for that vacation, working for the weekend, the years just fly by. And you don't realize it until COVID hits and now you're stuck at home for 3 months, or, you can't go out to eat, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. You're basically at work, or you're at home, or you're just at home or at home. And now you have this opportunity to actually sit down and think like, man, what do I really want? What does my life need to look like? And man, like, I really hope that people are out there taking this seriously and taking this opportunity to really clear out the noise that is outside your ears and really just focus on what the person inside of you is telling you what to do. And that's kind of why we're doing this module and moving forward with this, because stage one is the hardest. And it's the hardest because you have to ask a lot of tough questions. And sometimes you need a guide to kind of help you through those questions and ask the right questions and to get the right answers, because asking the right questions to get to the right answers is the most important part. And this is why we're doing this.
Yeah. And it's a very good point that we had. It's a wonderful opportunity. You hear a lot about people who've come to their deathbed or something, and they come back from it and they're a completely different person. They're a changed person. Maybe they had cancer and it just sent them on a different path, or they had a close front end with a wreck and they just completely changed their life. Well, that's a point of facing mortality and having to actually think about your life that gives you that perspective. And the same thing can happen with coronavirus here for everybody on a massive scale. We can all think about, hey, now that things have kind of stopped and I had some time, or maybe things got busier for you, I don't know. We need to intentionally think about, what do we want our lives to be like? What do we want our legacy to look like? What do we want our children to grow up like? Where do we want to live? Like, these are some of the basic things. And then you can really expand on it from there. Like, what do you really want your life to look like? You, and I mean you, not what your parents thought you should do, not the school that they would only pay for you to attend, not the car that they think you should drive, not what your friends are driving, like none of that stuff. And it doesn't have to be material. That stuff's fun. Guitar collections, book collections, whatever it is, those weirdos. So just think about what it is that you want in your life, and really try to apply that to what you're doing, and then write it down. Oh my gosh, write it down. It has to be in writing. There's something magical that happens when it is written down, because we can have these thoughts floating around in our heads of like, yeah, this is the direction I want to go. But then we always let them tweak a little bit at a time. We just give a little bit, give a little bit, give a little bit, until then it's no longer a reality. But when we write it down, it becomes concrete, and we've actually taken it out of just electrons firing in our head to something material on paper, that it is now a reality. And now we're just waiting for the rest of the electrons to arrive so that it's all in one place. That's all we're doing. But that is why it's got to be in writing. It's very important.
Yeah, when you were saying that, Reese, I was looking up to where mine was on my wall here, and I was just like, "Oh, there it is, right there." Because I come up here every morning with my coffee in my hand, and I read it out loud, and that gets me fired up. It gets me moving for the day, and I wouldn't be working from home in my home office without that preferred life up there working towards that. That was a huge waypoint in my life to get to this point that I'm at right now. And one thing that when you start knocking down some of these walls, you're going to realize, oh, I can keep knocking these down. But half the time it's just like, man, you don't want to get comfortable. I always want to stay a little bit. If I'm sitting in a chair, I want to be a little bit in pain, just a little bit, just to keep me moving around, because I don't ever want to get comfortable. I always want to keep accelerating, keep moving forward. And Reese, I know that on this module here that we're kind of talking about, there's no way we're going to be able to get into the preferred life deep, because it's the longest one, it's the hardest one, and it's it's number one for a reason. This is where you start, and you have to get this right before you even start worrying about 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe we should kind of do maybe just a brief synopsis of each one, just kind of like a preview of 1 through 5, more than just saying the names of them. And just maybe throw out a couple of questions at the end for maybe people to maybe ask us, or kind of maybe to ask themselves.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because we can literally spend days going through this where that's all you do, and it still can come out fuzzy, and you still need help. And like I said, I'm here teaching this. I've been doing it for years, and I still had to call my coach and talk to him about it. Like it's that important, and it can be that difficult just because we're on the inside of the jar trying to read the label, and sometimes we need that person on the outside looking at it and be like, no, this is what the label says. So that's a very good point, Joe. So
yeah.
All right, so stage 1, preferred life. Yeah, we've been hammering on that, so we'll go into stage 2 a little bit. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Stage 2 is the meet your needs, and this is stage 1 is the hardest stage, and this is the most annoying stage, I would say, when it comes to finances and what you're spending your money on, and what you should be spending your money on, and what is waste. I think, don't we have it in 3 categories? It's needs, wants, and stupid stuff, I think, is our three categories. So a need for Reese is food, water, and shelter. A want is those guitars that are over his right shoulder behind him there. And stupid stuff would be, I don't know, what's something stupid in your life, Reese, that you spend money on?
I don't know. Junk food, probably, for me.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of anti-vision in multiple aspects.
Yeah, this is the stage where you got to really face reality in your finances and see where you're at. Some people might not be that bad. Some people, but some people have a lot of pick up that rock, and there's a lot of nasty, ugly bugs under that rock, and you got to face them at some point, because those credit card bills, those short-term loans, or whatever you have going on, that making $10 and spending $20, that's going to come to an end soon, and you might as well rip that Band-Aid off right now. And we go through a whole process of that, and that's basically what stage 2 is. And
getting those expenses down is critical, because that will make stage 3, 4, and 5 just that much easier at that point to do what you're ultimately trying to do, financial freedom, right? That's what you want, that financial ability to pay for that preferred life. So the lower you can get your expenses, get out the stupid stuff, reduce your wants, reduce your needs, that sort of thing. And we're not saying to live without. Like, I still have this wants here behind me, but there's different ways to do it. Do I have to buy a Gibson, or can I buy an Epiphone? Like, that depends on you. Like, how into music are you? Mine's an Epiphone. So there's different ways to go about that. But once you get that into place, then it's just that much easier to get the money that you need. The more you can reduce your expenses, you don't need as much. Is it easier to live off of $10,000 in expenses, or is it easier to live off of 2,000 or $3,000 in expenses?
One's simpler, one's more complex, one's more exciting. I'll give you that. But
Maybe you're an adrenaline junkie and you just want to live the high life.
yeah, stage 3 is creating extra income. So we've met our needs, and we're at peace with our wants, needs, and stupid stuff. And we're now generating extra income from our earned income, our W-2 job, or whatever that we're doing. And what do we do with this extra income? Well, we don't spend it on stupid stuff. We start to build up these little tiny nest eggs, and we start to do different things with them. And a lot of times it's what is going to get you the most motivated and excited. So that might be paying down debt. That might be buying a couple of stocks here and there. That might be paying off a car loan. That might be, maybe investing in a rental property that's leveraged, or something small. Maybe it's just putting money into a CD and having an emergency fund, or maybe it's just letting your account balance grow up, and as it grows and grows and grows, you're like, man, I could take 6 months off of work. I could take 7 months off of work. I can take 8, and then just kind of keep going. Whatever. It doesn't matter. What we're doing here is just trying to build up extra income, and we're growing. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's habit stacking. You're building off of one habit after another, and you're building off of, you can have $10,000 in your bank account and look at it and go, I'm not going to increase my needs. I'm not going to go out and buy a bunch of dumb stuff with it. I'm going to just let that money sit there, and I'm going to wait for a golden opportunity to come across, because there always is one that's coming no matter what. And I'm going to jump on it. And Reese, why don't you go into 4?
Yeah, so stage 3, where you're building extra income, kind of starts to feed into stage 4, where you're building wealth. And that's where you really try to get your money to make the money for you. Every president that's on your dollar bills, they're now your employees. They're working for you, and they're trying to make you more money. So that's a lot of wealth management type of things, different techniques to do that, different investments, different investment types. But what it really comes down to at that point is, what kind of things do you want to do? What kind of life do you want to live? What did your preferred life say? And what level of involvement, what level of risk? How do you can still manage that in 100 different ways. So that building wealth will kind of unfold, and it's kind of almost like a tree branching out. There's more and more things you can do depending on which road you go down as you go through the different stages.
And stage 4, you can kind of ask yourself certain types of questions to figure out whether or not you're in this stage. And as you're building wealth, you might be thinking to myself, am I still dependent on my W-2 job? Yes or no? Could I go down to part-time and my life wouldn't be affected? Maybe yes or no. That would be awesome. Or could I completely quit my job 100% and live off of the income that I'm having from passive income or short-term active income, where I'm kind of focusing on investment? And you'll know when you're in stage 4, and this is where you actually get to increase your needs or your wants, but you're doing it through passive income growth. So if you go out and, let's say you lend somebody $10,000 at 10%, and they start paying you that income back. Well, that income, that interest income that's coming back, you could technically increase your lifestyle off of that. I think the Robert Kiyosaki book, it's his wife that goes out, she wants to buy a Mercedes, and the payments are like $450 a month, whatever it was. And he made the point of, she could go out and buy that and make payments on that, or she could save up and buy an apartment complex or a fourplex or whatever it was. And then the $450 a month that she was making off of that asset was going to pay for her car for her. Now, we're not saying that you have to get into real estate and that's the only way to make money. There's a million different ways to make $1 million. that was just the example that we're trying to show here from that book, is that she went out and purchased an asset that brought money back in, that now she could afford that car without having to go to work. She just managed an asset. And also in stage 4, your asset has income and it also appreciates. There's 2 key things there that happen, because a lot of people, there's a million different definitions for what an asset is. And for Reese and I, it has to be something that is going to appreciate, or at least we're expecting it to appreciate, and we're also expecting it to bring in income.
Yeah.
So Reese, what is the last stage?
Well, so just to touch on that for a minute, the house that you live in looks like a beautiful asset to the bank, but they're also trying to get money from you. So by you putting that down and you sending them money every month, yes, it's an asset to the bank. Well, what's it doing to you? It's a liability. It's taking money out of your pocket. You're having to pay for it. Now you can do some creative stuff and get like a second income suite or something like that, where it starts to make you money, or you rent out a room or an Airbnb, whatever it is, you can make money from it. But for the vast majority of people, it's a liability. It's money coming out of your pocket. So
that's a perfect example, Reese. I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, my house with a mortgage on it is an asset to the bank because my house is appreciating and I'm still making payments to them. So to the bank, that's a stage 4 income. For me, that's me just trying to meet my needs in stage 2. So they're playing in stage 4 with my house and I'm playing in stage 2 with my house. And yeah, that drives me up the walls when people say that your house is the most important asset that you'll ever own. It's just like, that is not our definition of it. If you're paying money, it's not an asset. I don't care what anybody says. And you can argue with me all day. It's not an asset if you're paying money into it. That's not how it works. So before I go off on a tangent, go ahead, Reese.
Yeah, all right. Stage 5 is giving back. And it's not that it's stage 5 because you wait until stage 5 to start giving back. You can absolutely give back along the way, and you should as well. It's not that you've received and now you can give back. In fact, you kind of want to do the opposite. You want to give so that you can receive, but it's not so that you will receive. There's a difference. So you want to give in a way that lifts you up, makes you feel good, and makes an impact on the way that you want to make an impact. You don't want to give and expect, like, hey, I was told that I'd get 10 times what I gave back. So I gave $1,000. I needed 10,000. So where's my 10,000? That's not the way you want to do it. You want to be able to give in a way that you're not worried about it. You're worried about the impact. You're not worried about the finances. So give where you can along the way. And maybe there's different ways. There's time, talent, and treasure. That's the main 3 ways to think about it. So how are you giving in your time? How are you giving in what talents and skills you have? How are you giving from your money or your possessions? That's stuff that you can all give along the way, and once you get to the financial freedom.
When you're creating your preferred life, that's when you can start to frame at a 10,000 foot view your stage 5. What would I want my life to look like if I had infinite amounts of money or infinite amount of time? What would I do with that? How would I give back? What portion of my day and what portion of my money would I give, and to who? What's an important cause to me? And one thing that will definitely highlight and identify is to give selfishly. And on the surface, that sounds kind of weird, doesn't make a lot of sense, but giving selfishly is what we're saying is give to a cause that brings you a lot of joy, brings you a lot of just like, I feel like I'm giving, I feel like I get so much happiness out of this. So if you don't care about the coffee farmlands in some countries, preserving the price of coffee in some other country, and giving to that cause, if you write a check for that for $10 and you're like, that was a waste of time, that's not giving selfishly. Giving selfishly would be if there's someone that shows up at your door and then they're like, I'm selling Girl Scout cookies, and if you buy these Girl Scout cookies, I'll be able to go on a trip to Washington, D.C., and it'll be the best trip of my life, and da-da-da-da-da. And you were at one point, you were a Girl Scout, and you can go back and remember when you were selling Girl Scout, and you remember how awesome your Washington trip was, and you know that you've given $10 to this person to buy some cookies is going to take them to that Washington trip, and you're just so excited they're going to get to share in something that you did when you were a kid 20 years ago. That's giving selfishly because, man, that $10 is going to something that gets you really excited, really pumped up. So we'll get into it more in detail, but the key is that figure out ways you can give selfishly.
Yeah, and that really does kind of feed into the preferred life, though, as well. You know, you kind of think about beginning with the end in mind, and that's what the giving back does. Like, what ways do you want to leave your mark on the world? How do you want to contribute to society? I mean, not that you're having to be altruistic no matter what, like that, not that that's the purpose of it, but you know, what are you working on that's bigger than you? What kind of meaty challenges are you trying to go after? So that's where the preferred life really connects through the rest of it. It's not just a one-way thing. There's a loop to it.
Yep, absolutely.
So how can you get started on your preferred life? Well, just think about all the things that you've ever wanted to do. Just, when you were a little kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Yeah, are you doing that now? Like, where did you get off? What would you rather be doing instead? Maybe what you wanted to do when you were little, maybe that's not such a good idea, but maybe there's something related to it. Start thinking about that. What is it that you really want to be doing? Is there places you even want to visit? What kind of things do you want to do? Where you want to travel? People you want to spend time with? What kind of things do you want to do with that? Just start thinking about all these things that you want to do in your life and just start writing them down. And here's a very important aspect of doing that. Don't filter. Do not think that, hey, that's not possible, so I'm not going to write it down. Who cares? We're imagining for now. We've got to pretend that whatever we are going to write down is going to come true. And we're going to enjoy it. We're going to be selfishly happy about it. It's going to make us feel good. And that's why it's got to be written down. No filter. If it's embarrassing, so what? It's your life. That's why we say it's your preferred life, the life that you prefer to live.
If you're embarrassed, and that means you're on the right track. You know, if you're too embarrassed to share it with everybody, that means you're on the right track because you're actually putting down stuff you actually care about. And going back to kind of wrap it up a little bit, prosperity equals freedom to experience life. I mean, you don't know how much time you're going to get on this world. You're hoping to get to your 80s or whatever, 80s plus, but some people just don't make it that far. And whatever crisis we're currently in right now is truth to that. And not filtering and getting in a room with no distractions and just figuring out what you want in different parts of your life, like your wealth, your health, your family, your love with your spouse, your own kids, your own legacy, and what type of vacations do you want to go on? What type of house do you want to live in? And some people can get materialistic here, and we have some ways to kind of really dial in to see if that's really what people want or not. At this point, it's kid in the candy store time. It just blast it out. Anything that you can think of that gets you excited and gets you motivated and gets those endorphins moving and gets you excited and gets you bouncing around in your chair, that's what needs to go on the paper. This turns into a homework assignment. You start feeling bored and you're just kind of like writing stuff down because this is what mom wanted. This is what my priest wanted. This is what my wife wants. This is what my teacher said I should do. This is what my guidance counselor said I should do. All that stuff shouldn't be on there at all. Yeah. Don't write any of that nonsense on there. If it doesn't excite you, it doesn't need to go on there. If it gets you excited, it needs to go on there.
And if there's some stuff that you're kind of like, I'm not really sure, just write it down. We can go back through later and ask some questions about, hey, what are we actually going to do? Do I actually want this or not? We can filter those out later, but it's important that you write it down as you're brainstorming that, because that helps you keep the creative process going. Once you get in that flow, you want to keep it going. I heard somewhere, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I heard that I think it's Disney, their creative process, they don't really consider any ideas before 63 or something like that, before they get 63 ideas out, because then they start really getting creative after that. So just really got to get out as much as you can. Get it out of your head, get it down on paper, and then you can look at it and play with it. Is it something I want, or is it not? So that's all we've got for now. Go through your preferred life and see what you got. Start getting those ideas down, and then we're going to go through some more, and we'll go on to the next stage in our next video. And I want you to stay tuned. So hit like, hit subscribe, do us a favor, share this with anybody that you think could use this message, that you think could use that little extra help in their life. If you have any trouble, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. Let us know in the comments what you're thinking. If you have any ideas yourselves or anything you want to share, just hit subscribe right now, and we'll see you next time.